So today we are going to talk about the concept of interfaces. Right. Now out here yesterday I told you that there is a separate driver class for every browser. Okay, majorly three browsers we use: Firefox, Chrome and IE. So these are the drivers. And what if I want to make a script work on all the three browsers? Will I have to write a separate script for all the three browsers? Okay, the answer to that is no. What you need to do is that you need to study the concept of interfaces for this. Okay, right. So what I'll do is that in day 3 I'll just make a new interface. Okay, now what is an interface? Alright, for example, I'll call this interface as phone. Now in layman terms, what do you mean by interface? Look, the thing is, suppose you go to any website. Alright, you go to my website, which is qtpselenium.com. Right, over there on the website you see what all is there, the training is there, everything is there. Right, so the website is like an interface for you which tells you what kind of training we provide. Okay, similarly when you go to a market and you want to buy a book, how do you judge the book? You judge the book by reading the index page or the front cover of the page, and it gives you a fair enough idea that what the book is going to do, but it doesn't explain you that what exactly will be there inside the book. Right, so this book index page is like an interface to you which tells you what the book is all about. It gives you a brief idea. So similarly we have got interfaces in Java which gives you a very brief idea that what the system is all about. Right, for example, phone interface will have a function like public void start. So it not start, say recharge, and public void is called. Inside an interface you don't have the function bodies, you just have the names. By just reading this interface phone, any layman can say that what all functions are there inside the phone interface. Okay, right. So when you make a new class, for example, I'll make a new class known as iPhone. Right. Okay. So what we'll do is that we'll write over here iPhone implements phone. Now what do you mean by implements phone? By writing that iPhone implements phone, we say that it is mandatory for the iPhone class to implement all the functions inside the phone interface. Inside the phone interface there are two functions. They don't have any body, nothing. When iPhone class implements this, you'll have to implement it mandatorily. You'll see the error over here, move the mouse over the error and select the option add unimplemented methods. So both the methods they get added over here. Okay, it is mandatory for a class, if a class is implementing an interface, it is mandatory for that class to implement all the functions of the interface. Okay, right. Now out here, even if I remove one of the functions, you will get an error. It's mandatory for the class to implement all the functions. Right. Now inside the recharge function, I can type iPhone recharging, and I can type over here iPhone calling. Right, so there are two functions, a recharge function and call function I have implemented. Right, similarly I can make a new class known as Samsung. Right, now I can write over here Samsung class also implements phone interface. So mandatorily I will have to implement both the functions. This @ sign means it's an annotation. Okay, this sign over here. Okay, @ It is not mandatory. You can remove it as well. But if you keep it, then this signifies that this function is coming up from the interface. Even a layman who is reading your code, he'll come to know that this function is coming from the interface. Okay, right. So you can write over here Samsung recharge. Okay, and Samsung calling. Okay, right. So now I have this Samsung class which has also implemented both the functions but in its own way, in its own desired way. So what have I achieved from this? Why is this important? I could had never made the phone interface. I could have just made two classes, iPhone and Samsung. Why do I need to implement a phone interface? I could have simply kept two classes with the desired functions. Okay, the importance is that suppose you have an interface over here. Okay, this is the phone interface. Okay, both Samsung, this is Samsung, this is iPhone class. Both are implementing the interface. Okay, right. Now what happens is that if a third class comes up tomorrow, for example BlackBerry, it will also implement the interface. All the phone classes which will come up in the near future will have to implement the phone interface, and all of them will have two functions, recharge and call. So it gives a kind of discipline to the system. A layman who looks at your code for the first time, by just looking at the phone interface, he will be able to say that what functions they lie inside the implementing classes to the phone interface. Okay, maybe the implementation is different in every class. Okay, iPhone will have its own code in recharge function, its own code in call function, the way you implement. Okay, Samsung will have its own code, but the names of the functions in each class would be the same. Okay, right. So out here, out here, uh, just a minute guys. Just 1 minute. So out here, you have the recharge function, the call function. These two functions would be the same in every particular class. In every class, these two functions would be the same. All the implementing classes. Right? Okay. So this is the importance of interface. If I go to the official website of Selenium, okay, if I go to seleniumhq.org, which is the official website, out here if I go to the download section, you will see the document Java docs, the documentation of Selenium. Right? You go inside the documentation, and in this documentation, these are all the classes. You don't need to remember all of them. Right? Now ones which are in italics, these are interfaces. Right? For example, mouse. Mouse is in italics over here. So mouse is an interface, and all the implementing classes are event firing mouse, remote mouse, and these are the functions in the mouse interface. Okay, right. So you can create the objects of the implementing classes and use these functions. Similarly, everybody has heard about the word WebDriver. Okay, WebDriver is nothing but WebDriver is an interface. Technically, in the architecture of Selenium, WebDriver is an interface. So if anybody asks you in an interview what is WebDriver or explain me the architecture of Selenium, so the whole story starts from single point that WebDriver is the interface and all the driver classes, Chrome driver, Edge, IE, Firefox, Safari, Opera, Internet, all the driver classes, they have the same set of functions as they are implementing the WebDriver interface. All these driver classes, they implement this interface. So all of them will have the same set of functions. This interface defines few major functions which we will be using up, okay, as we proceed. Like get title will get you the title of the page, close will close the browser, right? Find element will find an element on the page. Get function will load a new web page in the current browser, right? So basically all the functions inside the interface WebDriver are implemented by the driver classes. So yesterday we talked about the driver classes, so you don't have to worry. All the driver classes will have the same set of functions. Okay, that is why the get function was used yesterday to navigate to the URL, and name of the function was same. Okay, as all the driver classes were implementing the same interface. Okay, right. Now suppose I make a simple program. I make a new class known as Selenium Basics again. Right. Now I have a scenario, suppose, where I have the browser mentioned like this. Later on, you can read the browser from an Excel file or wherever you want to read. Suppose this is the browser. So whatever is the browser, my code, whatever script I am writing after this should execute on that particular browser. Okay, right. So how do you do that? If I want, I can say that if the browser name is equal to Mozilla, then you have to set the system property to WebDriver and launch Firefox. Else, if browser is equal to Chrome, then you need to set the system property to Chrome driver and launch Chrome. Okay. Else if the browser is IE, right, in that case you have to set the system property to IE and launch IE. So depending on the browser, Firefox, Chrome or IE, you need to launch the browser. But will it solve my purpose? Because if I have to write the code after launching Firefox, I'll have to write the code over here, firefox.get http, say anything, say bbc.com. Okay, then Chrome driver.get to http, say cnn.com. Okay, then iDriver.get to the website http, say cnn.com. So, or I'll take the same website. So will I write a separate code over here inside every else statement separately for separate browsers? Functions are same, names are same, but this reference over here, for Firefox it is the Firefox reference, for Chrome it is the Chrome reference, for IE it is the IE reference. So it doesn't serve the purpose. Although we understood the concept of interface, yes, interface is something which will just define the methods and all the classes will have the same set of functions. Same set of functions are there inside Firefox, inside Chrome, inside IE, but it's not serving our purpose. Okay, right. So how do you correct this? To correct this, the answer again comes up from the concept of interfaces. Right. Let me just make a new class over here known as test phone. In this class, I can create the object of iPhone. Fine. And I can call the function. Say iPhone dot call iPhone dot recharge. Right. Pretty simple. I have simply created the object of this iPhone class. It's got two functions. I'm calling them. Right. When I run this code, it prints. Hold on. Okay. Actually, I was installing Android inside my Eclipse for the Appium tool. Probably that because of that it's hanging a little bit. So kindly bear with me. Yeah. So it's fine now. So you see that it's writing iPhone calling and iPhone recharging. Right. Then you create the object of Samsung phone. You can call the same set of functions but on the Samsung class. If I run it, it will now print Samsung calling, Samsung recharging and iPhone calling iPhone. The function names are same, right? Okay. Now suppose iPhone says that it has its own function which is proprietary to iPhone. For example, public void iMaps. Okay. Now this function is only there in iPhone, right? iMaps. So I can call this function as well. I can call it from the iPhone object, but obviously it will not be available in the Samsung object. Okay, things are pretty simple, right? Very logical that iPhone defines its own proprietary function iMaps, which I can directly call, right? Now the difference lies out here. Now listen to this carefully. Lot of people, they get confused out here. I can also create the object like this. Okay, first of all, if I talk about the interface, hold on. I cannot create the object of interface in Java. If I write over here phone p equals to new phone, it will give me an error. You can create the reference, but you cannot create the object because obviously interface is something which is incomplete. It is something which is just having the method declaration. It's not having the bodies and also what will you do by creating the object of an interface? So you cannot create the object of an interface in Java, but you can write over here new iPhone. The reference is of the interface, but the object is of the class implementing interface. So out here in line number 17 and line number 10, there is a difference. Out here the reference was of the class and object was of the class. Over here the reference is of the interface and it is pointing to the class implementing the interface. Okay, so how is it different? With this I can call the functions like call and recharge. If I create the object like this, I can call the functions in the class which are coming from the interface, not the proprietary functions. I will not be able to call the proprietary functions which are there inside the iPhone class. Like iMaps was a proprietary function inside iPhone. Okay, right. So iMaps cannot be called. Only functions which are in this class coming from the interface can be called. So what is the advantage? What is the advantage? The advantage is that you can make P dynamically point towards any object. If I run this code now, hold on. It will print iPhone calling, iPhone recharging. Now I can make P equate to Samsung as well over here. Okay. And if I run it, it will print Samsung calling, Samsung recharge. Or I can make P point towards iPhone later on. I can write P equals to new iPhone. Based on my decision, I can make P point towards any object. P can point towards Samsung, P can point towards iPhone, right? Okay, so if I run it, see that first it prints Samsung calling, Samsung recharging, then iPhone calling, iPhone recharging. If anybody has any questions, you can let me know. Right. Now I can also decide to do something like this. Say I'll write over here phone P1 equals to null. That means P1 is not pointing anywhere. Based on my decision, I can make P1 point towards new iPhone. Okay, if I call the function P1.call, it will call the iPhone call function. Or I can make P1 point towards new Samsung. Okay, so when you run this code, it prints iPhone calling, Samsung calling, everything. So I hope you got my point. Pardon? Yeah, I made the phone reference. It was not pointing to anything. I can make phone point towards iPhone. I can make it point towards Samsung. It's completely my decision. And I can call the corresponding function. Yeah, there will be no conflict till line number 28. It will be pointing towards the iPhone object. On 30th line, okay, it will make a new object and start pointing towards that. Okay, on line number 27, it will point towards the object of iPhone. On line number 30, this will be removed and it will start pointing towards the object of Samsung. Yeah, yeah. So it gets removed from iPhone. Okay, so it calls the function for Samsung. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's line by line execution, right? Yeah, you could have done that. Yeah, yeah, you can. I did it over here. Phone P equals to Samsung and then P equals to iPhone. So, right. No, it is not like that. If you directly equate it, there is no need to write. If you directly write it like this as well, then also you can do it. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Yeah, fine. So out here, hold on. Yeah, we that is the main purpose. We'll be forcing the method so that you know there is some discipline in the system. Just by looking at the phone interface, people can do that. People can understand what's there in the system. Okay. Now in Selenium, we know that I just told you WebDriver is the interface, and all the driver classes they implement the interface. So I can write over here WebDriver driver equals to say new Firefox driver as well. I can create the object of Firefox driver like this as well, or I can make driver point towards new Chrome driver as well, because all these classes are implementing the WebDriver interface. Or I can make driver point towards new Internet Explorer driver as well. Okay, right. So out here WebDriver driver equals to null. Hold on guys. You can write null. That means driver is not pointing anywhere. Based on your decision, you can make it point toward any particular browser, because all the classes are implementing the WebDriver interface. So in the class which I just made Selenium Basics, if you have to start the browser dynamically, if I write over here Chrome, then script should run on Chrome. Okay, if you have to do like this, if you write over here Mozilla, then Mozilla, then you can actually define WebDriver on the top to null, nothing. Based on your requirement, okay, you can make driver point towards Firefox or Chrome or I. So you initialize this, right? So you don't need to write this code again and again over here. You just need to initialize the driver, okay? And once you have initialized the driver, the code will go over here. The functions will remain same for all the driver classes. You can write driver.get, say http bbc.com. Then you can write a driver.close or driver.quit. Quit. There is a difference between driver.close and quit. We'll talk about that later on. This will end the session. Meanwhile, you can interact with the page as well using the driver. So whichever browser you mention over here, if I run the script now, script will open in Mozilla. Okay, so you initiate the driver over here to the respective class, and then you take that driver to that particular website. So it will just start in 2 minutes, right? So this is how it works. Okay, you see that it just started Mozilla and it will take it to bbc.com, right? Now instead of Mozilla, you can change the browser name out there. Okay, if you want, you can see BBC is loading, right? You can change the browser over here to say I. Then the same script is going to run on I. Okay, right. So you just need to change the browser name. Later on, we will read this browser name from external file, say an Excel file or a properties file or a text file, wherever we have kept, or an XML file. You can read it from anywhere. Alright, and open the browser accordingly, run the script and make it work on all the browsers. Now once you are on a website, how do you interact with the elements on the website. So that is the next part. You have opened the browser, you have done everything. Okay. Now how do you interact with the elements of the website? Okay. So actually I'll do that tomorrow with you, because I need a complete 1 hour with me for that, because if I start it off right now, I don't have enough time. I need a continuous flow for that. How do you interact with the web page? What page sources, what XPaths are, what IDs are. Okay, how do you recognize the elements, right? So I need time for that. So I'll stop here. Okay. And sorry for the little delay during the class. Okay, I'll make sure that everything is okay tomorrow in the PC, right? And